Tonight we continue our segments with this year's candidates for Boston City Council. Our guest is one of the candidates running for the seat being vacated by Tim McCarthy in District 5. The district includes Hyde Park and Reedville, along with most of Roslindale and Mattapan. To tell us about her candidacy is Mimi Turchinetz. Thank you very much for being with us again.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Some viewers might remember you in association with the Earned Income Tax Credit,
Right.
but
Yes.
You also have a background as a prosecutor and as an activist. Tell us about that.
So I have been a community organizer for many years. I also went to law school after I had been a community organizer in public housing, which I did for a couple of years, fighting for low-income tenants. I went to law school, and after law school, I was engaged in the Ralph Martin campaign. We got Ralph Martin elected to DA in Suffolk County, the first African-American ever to win in Suffolk County. And then I knew at that point that if I was going to practice law, this was really my opportunity. So I went into the DA's office in Suffolk County and worked in B2 in Roxbury.
Well, if you were to get elected, this would not be the first time that a prosecutor was a district councilor here, because Dan Conley went that path as well. What did you learn from being a prosecutor that would be good for becoming a city councilor?
I think what I learned was that really the whole criminal justice system needs reform, and that as an assistant DA, it was very clear to me that jail and locking people up was not the answer to what folk needed, and that really, especially in the district courts, Chris, which is small dollar crimes, right? It's the stuff that Rachel Rollins has kind of said, we're not going to prosecute this stuff, and it's drugs and it's petty theft, and yeah, there's some serious stuff there, but for the most part, people need something else. It's a reflection of poverty. It's a reflection of people being disenfranchised. So what I learned was that we need something other than prosecution. We need programs, we need services, we need beds for folks who have drug dependencies. So it was very clear to me. I mean, I knew at that time that this was not going to be something that I could do, kind of become a career prosecutor, that my focus was on serving the community.
I can't resist asking you, but when the U.S. Attorney General Barr beat up on some of these DAs, including, I presume, Rachel Rollins, how did you feel?
I felt personally attacked. I mean, that stuff is just, it's unconscionable. Barr is unconscionable. Let's not go there. You don't want to get me started on how I feel about what they're doing.
I want to come back here more locally, of course. There's a lot of talk in this district. I wouldn't have expected it a few years ago, but the talk is out there. The cost of housing is just getting out of control, especially along that corridor, the Fairmount Indigo line. Yeah. What should be done about that?
Well, so I come to this position with the most experience around affordable housing. I started the Southwest Boston CDC 20 years ago. I'm the outgoing president of the board. We just cut the ribbon on 27 units of affordable housing, 100% affordable in Hyde Park, the first affordable housing in over 20 years. So my plan for housing is to build more affordable housing, to make sure we have community control of development, to address the issue of evictions. I mean, what's happening is there's a lot of greed, and so given what's happening downtown with the increasing of the rents across the corridor, up and down River Street, people are increasing rents by $500, $600, $700. I mean, I'm hearing that from folk in the neighborhood all the time. So we need the right to counsel bill, which is something that's sitting in the legislature now. We need to find more resources for deep subsidy for very low-income families. We need to make sure that we increase the amount of affordability in market rate buildings. The other thing that I'm really committed to trying to do is get 1/3 low-income, 1/3 moderate, and 1/3 market in all the developments that we build. We did that in Tent City. It was very successful. They're doing it in Roxbury and city-owned land. So let's figure out a way to do it in market rate housing. Some people say it can't be done. I say let's try to do it.
Of course, you also have the case of Reedville Station, the surrounding area. Lots of units are being proposed. A lot of people in the neighborhood says, wait a minute, that's too much. There's too much congestion here. What's the solution to that?
Well, I mean, I think the issue is community control of development once again. I mean, when that project, the Sprague Street project, was first proposed, it was 700 units. People have been fighting that for over 2 years. We're now down to about 300 units. People are still engaged in the conversation. I'm not opposed to development. I've said that in community meetings. What I've said is We need more affordability in that development. We need at least 20% affordability there. And we need to make, there's some delicate wetlands, and it's right on Sprague Pond. So we need to be mindful of that. I mean, it's not a bad idea to build in Reedville. The question is, how do we do it with community control? How do we do it and build what it is that people want to see, and so that it's housing for folks in the community who still want to live here?
Turning to transportation, there are some challenges, not just in Hyde Park and Reedville, also Mattapan and Roslindale, getting where they need to go fast enough and affordably enough. What would you like to see?
You mean that our standard is, as long as the train doesn't derail today, we're in good shape, right? Pretty low standard these days. No, I mean, I think that the Fairmont line is a reflection of what we can do that is positive, but clearly we need to do more. So we need to have the Fairmont line be rapid transit. We need the fares to be fair. So we need to be able to use Charlie cards all the way up and down the line. Right now it costs $6 plus to be able to take that train one way from Reedville. So we need equity in that line. We also need to have equity in the line in Roslindale. So there's also issues clearly around the buses and rapid transit in that district, right? I mean, it is a district that is a bus district, and so we need to improve the buses also.
What about the schools? There are some very desirable schools, including district public schools, but there are some other places that people don't want to send their kids to.
Right. So every kid deserves a quality education, whether it's public or charter or Catholic. I'm a proponent of public schools. I would do everything I can to work with the school committee and the new commissioner to make sure that the schools are equitable, and that we do everything we can do for English language learners and kids with disabilities. I think also we need some transparency around Build BPS. There's an issue with the Rogers School, which was transferred to the Department of Neighborhood Development for affordable housing. It's going to be senior housing. Not a bad end result, but we're pitting low-income families who need public schools against seniors, and so that's not a good result, right? We need to really much more transparent about Build PPS, because the families feel like they don't have a voice at the table.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Sure, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I just want to make sure that people know I'm running to strengthen neighborhoods, build community, and knit the district together, and thank you for letting me speak with you today.
Thank you for joining us. Mimi Turchinetz, candidate for City Council in District 5.